All right, I've started recording um, because the second I saw you here on Skype and I saw your fancy space background and I'm like, should I record? And you're like, all right, my man, celebrity Josh. I'm just happy to be here. I'm like, okay, I got to record because I don't want to miss. Don't want to miss a gem, a single moment of this, the energy you're bringing to this. Um, so welcome to yes, this is the Celebrity Josh Show. I don't really like the name. Maybe you can help me come up with a new name. And I'm Josh Rachlis, and I don't like my own name either, so we can work on that. But it is. Oh, and here's my new thing. I'm going to say it's Friday, August 6th, 2021, because I feel like people should know what the date is in case they're listening to this in the future and they're like, well, how come he hasn't mentioned like the pandemic or the alien invasion or whatever's happened? Because, well, it hasn't happened yet. It's just August 6th, people. Hopefully it's still relevant to you. So my guest today is Dom Brightmon, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that he's got like sparks behind him, and he's got his .com above him. That's all very cool. And if you can't see that, well, you can hear it. So deal with it. All right. There's my intro, and we're out of time. Thanks for coming, Dominique. No, I'm just kidding.
See you next week, baby.
Exactly. Same time, same channel. The 1 minute podcast. All right. So, do you go by Dominique Brightmon or Dom Brightmon?
Hey, it's all yours, man. If Dom's easier to say, then it's A-OK.
Well, you've got dombrightmon.com as your website address, but of course, you want to make a domain name as short as possible.
Yeah, man. Especially nowadays, when there's short attention spans. I think the goldfish have his beat now, thanks to the smartphones.
well, that's partly why I want to change my name because, like it's Josh Rachlis. Well, first of all, it's hard to spell, hard to pronounce, and it's like 3 syllables. I'm so jealous of people like Sting or Pink. It's like 1 syllable, 1 word. I feel like people are more likely to reference you. They might be like, "Oh, I love that Sting album," but you're not going to go, I want to see that Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like, no, okay, it's by the second syllable. Like, I know who you're talking about. Why do you have to say Ariana Grande? It's like Ari. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, time is. Imagine if I shortened my name and just I became really famous. It would actually be saving years of life for people. Like those extra syllables, everybody would have, millions of people saying my name. If it shortens it, I'll be like doing everyone a favor, and we could use that time more productively than saying my name.
Oh, but you can at least play some Destiny's Child "Say My Name" every time.
Folks
want to say your name.
Why didn't I come up with it? Say my name. What is that song about? Like, are they like making love and they're saying "Say my name"? Do we know?
To be honest, I forgot. I just remember the chorus like every other song on the planet.
I guess none of us know what any of those songs are. we could sit here and try to analyze Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion, but we might get nowhere.
No, not them. Nothing against them, but no.
There's this sort of conservative podcaster I've been listening to. What's his name? Matt somebody, and he has this segment where he analyzes rap lyrics and treats them like great poetry and stuff. And there was a song. Oh, I forget who this guy was. I never heard of him. It's another rapper name, and his song was called "We Get Paid" or something, and he was just distilling the essence of it. And sometimes Ben Shapiro will analyze like the WAP song or something like that. It's beautiful. It's like Shakespeare. So if I was meeting you in an elevator and I'd be like, who are you? What's your deal? Like, what's your pitch? What's your summary?
Sure thing. Name's Dom Brightmon, host of the Going North podcast, and I'm a certified self-leadership trainer that likes to coach, empower, and equip others to share their stories, because I myself have learned how to take pieces of my life and turn them into stories and create my own piece of immortality and to help others to do the same. So that's probably the pitch version of it. And if you want the longer version, I could go into the longer version too.
Yeah, no, we've got as much time as you've got. I've got no life.
You got life, man.
Yeah, no, I'm trying. Doing these interviews is like a little break for me because I can like I have to talk to you and think and stuff, and so it takes me out of my own head, which is normally just like, oh my God, what have I done with my life? What's happening? What's the point of anything?
Hey man, you're doing good work, dude. I mean, Celebrity Josh Show. I mean, hey, it ain't your favorite name, but it's a name to start with. Folks don't even start, period. So.
Well, that's the thing. That's what you learn. Like, I mean, you don't. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of people like Kathy Heller, who talks about, the only way to learn something is to just do it. And you don't know where it's going to go. You just start, and it turns out, I was doing a cooking blog, but now I become a coach teaching people how to make money with blogs. Or James Altucher's always saying, just experiment, see where it goes. That's the way to skip the line. That's the name of his book. And Celebrity Josh, I guess I came up with that like, I don't know, 15 years ago. I needed a name for another team. I was working as a copywriter. Another team in the ad agency said, hey, we have an idea for you to sell Orville Redenbacher select white popcorn. We want you to be like a celebrity hunter, going to the film festival, asking celebrities to try it. And I want to come up with a cool name for myself. And I was like, I don't know, the Celebrity Hunter, and all that was taken on YouTube. And then I thought, Crocodile Dundee is named Crocodile Dundee because he hunts crocodiles, so I could be Celebrity Josh, and it kind of means I'm joshing around celebrities too. And then years later, I sort of was trying to come up with a domain name, and I decided, hey, I could use that. And then I wound up interviewing celebrities on the red carpet. At the time, I was using joshrachlis.today as my website because some guy in Indonesia stole joshrachlis.com and was holding it hostage.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then, just lately I've been like, Celebrity Josh, what does that even mean? I don't know. So I've been back to Josh Rachlis, because at least if you Google that, I'm the only Josh Rachlis. But if you Google Celebrity Josh, you're going to get every celebrity named Josh. And so Josh Brolin or Josh Hartnett. I hate that there's other Joshes. And then lately I've been like, no, I got to come up with something else. So I'm working with Spark the Genius, because it's like kind of Tyler the Creator, Charlemagne the God, Megan the Stallion, Spark the Genius. And it works as a mantra. Like, I want to tell you, I'm going to teach you how to spark the genius, like get something going, start something, a good idea kind of thing. So it works two ways. And I also want something visual, so you could like draw a spark. And then when I typed the word spark into like to see what emoji would come up, it's a little spark that looks like an S. I'm like, oh my God, that's so perfect. It could be my logo. Nice. So I haven't started using that yet. Because it's probably ridiculous. I'll probably just keep trying to come up with names forever, and I'll just be Josh Rachlis forever. But that's where I am right now. Were you born Dominique Brightmon?
Yeah, that's the good thing. Been born with a name. Funny enough, if you want, you could probably try hashtag Celebrity Spark if that might not be taken yet.
Ooh, not bad, not bad. Yeah, I keep looking for different angles. Like I was looking up what Spark domain, spark.com is taken, but I could get spark.army. And then I looked up sparkarmy.com. I'm like, that's some drink or something. So that's the thing. Everything's kind of taken. Like even celebrities can't, like even Cardi B can't get at Cardi B on Instagram. She has to be I am Cardi B. So I feel like maybe it's not even worth, it's probably not worth stressing about it too much. It's like when I was in high school, I spent like months and years trying to come up with a good name for a band rather than actually learning guitar and writing songs. So, and then I think Gary Vee was even talking recently about how names don't matter. Google, what the heck does that mean? But it takes on a meaning. And then I was looking up the history of Amazon. I actually am fascinated. I look up every celebrity's name. Like, how did Snoop Dogg come up with his name? Where did Jay-Z come from? Beyonce was lucky. That's just her name. And Drake was just his middle name. Also, it seems like it's kind of, if you're a rock star, you could have a cool name like Drake or Bono. But if you're a comedian, you kind of look like a weirdo if you're like, my name is Spark. It's like, really? That's trying a bit hard. Cedric the Entertainer, he seems to do it. But even when I say that, I'm like, that's a bit of a long name. That's a bit of a... Oh, wait, how do I decline? I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, because there we go. Because it's actually coming through my computer, too. It's always ringing. It's always ridiculous. So you're lucky to be born Dom Brightmon. What city are you in?
The land of charm, crime, and crab cakes, Baltimore, Maryland, in the U.S. of A.
Is that on their sign as you drive in? Welcome to the land of charm, crime, and crab cakes?
Nope, but that's just the three things that Baltimore is known for. Well, three of the main things.
Well, that's all right. And so what's your story? Like, how did you get to be the storyteller coach guy?
Yeah, funny enough, it actually started, I'd say, probably my teenage years when, the magical years of puberty happen and, things start to drop and then the voice just gets deeper and it's like, hey, this dude has a great radio voice. And I've been getting that ever since I was freaking, my goodness, like 14, from being in a church saying, like basically leading worship, saying prayers and taking part of plays and playing roles with a lot of lines, to being able to get to public speaking courses, a couple, one in high school, one in college, and then finally after leaving college, joining Toastmaster to sharpen my craft.
Mm.
And through there, just really just sharing information I've learned and read and applied in my own life and sharing it with other people. That's one of the greatest things about this age nowadays is the fact that we have access to so many things that can teach us so many things to help us really embrace our dreams. And one of the ways to do that is by reading great books by people who've probably taken years of research, study, practice, and heck, even some of their own personal stories into a little small investment package of like $20 or so. And really just reading that, seeing if it applies to your own life. And it applied to my own life because back in, wow, 2012, yep, 2012, classic year where in America we thought the world was going to end. So even parts of the world thought the world was going to end. But all that really happened is that we just lost Twinkies for a month. And when we lost those Twinkies for a month, it
Wait,
was like, oh,
2012. What was 2012?
yeah, I remember the End Times Prophecy. There's this movie that was out called 2012 where they thought, oh, the world's going to end. The Mayan calendar has to
Right.
reset.
right, with John Cusack, yes.
It's like, oh, we're going to die.
Yeah. Well, I was just reading James Altucher. He posted an Instagram thing, I guess in May, and it was a list of all the times we thought we're going to die, and it was like, you know, the 70s. I don't know what it was. We're going to run out of oil, and then the 80s, global warming's going to kill us, and the 90s, whatever. And then 2012 was like the Mayan calendar's running out, and then it was the most recent COVID's going to kill us all. But that kind of got him because he was really cocky. He's like, I don't need a vaccine or whatever. And then his podcast this week, I was listening. He's like, okay, my wife and I got COVID and we almost died. It's like, okay, so maybe not that one as much. But yeah, okay. So that's true. That was supposed to be the end of the world, and we lost Twinkies. What happened with the Twinkies?
Yeah, they just stopped producing them. I have no idea why. And I guess was some kind of contract issue or something, and they just stopped producing them for like a couple months, and then they just reappeared out of nowhere. Yeah, I guess
I'll bet somebody bought the brand or something, because like somebody like Ty Lopez, who's buying up everything like I don't know, Pier 1 or Franklin Mint, Radio Shack. He sees all these brands that he thinks are worth something, and so if you look at his Instagram bio, it lists all these companies from the 80s that he now owns, and he's very proud of this, and who knows if he's making money or whatever. He's putting them online. So okay, so somebody's making Twinkies again. That's good. But at the time, you're like, okay, what was going on with you?
Yeah, what was going on with me is the fact that I really had no direction in life at the time, because it was like the second to the last semester of my college years, like going for my IT degree. And I realized, wow, I really, like, it's okay, but had some setbacks going on where my father, I have some aging parents. My father at the time, he was going through dementia, and on my 21st birthday got into a car accident. And then the cupcake kept getting more sprinkles because a month after I was doing a part-time job while holding down full-time college courses. And my boss called me at the time, was like, hey, like, you sure you're all right here? Because I was screwing up a lot in different areas. One of them was just some miscommunication issues going on with a fellow colleague. And it was like, hey, like, I got some new employees coming in and they're going to be looking to you as a leader. And subconsciously, like, the word leader just stayed in my mind, because next thing I know, a couple weeks later, I was shelving books, and one of the books I saw on the shelf was The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And that book inspired me to become a voracious reader, reading a bunch of books and actually falling in love with reading again, because grade school, they give you books you don't want to read and forcing you to read them if you want to get a good grade. And it's like, I don't want to read this crap. And just forgetting that there's other stuff out there that I can choose to read for myself and choose to take advice from and choose to advance from. And that just set me on the path to falling in love with reading, personal development, and eventually becoming an author myself, especially since a lot of the stuff I was reading was just the self-help, the leadership, psychology, persuasion, sales, stuff like that. What you put yourself around the most, what you'll eventually become. So I was putting myself around other people who were all about personal development and making themselves better. And a couple of them, I started getting around other authors, and I too eventually became an author. So kind of like that whole classic, the 5 friends you hang around. if you're the 5th person, the four or 5 friends you hang around, if you're the 5th person in that group, you're most likely going to be the person in the group. Like, heck, even looking back, my closest friends in high school, they were pretty skinny. They had a little muscle, but most of them were pretty skinny. And I eventually became skinny myself because I was a fat kid growing up at the time until I got to my friends around like eighth grade in middle school and then kept them through high school. And then as the years rolled around and we grew apart a bit because of our schedules, because adulting can do that to you, I got around some other folks who were a little bit more on the heavyweight side of the game. And I too became a little heavier. And of
That's
course,
fun.
COVID 19,
Mhm.
with the 19 part being the pounds that people probably gained from the darn pandemic of being in house all day. Yeah, I kept the heavyweight status. So yeah, man, it's been one heck of a journey of just like like growing up in Baltimore and just really just having a life of just really just having that great voice that I was born with and getting that encouragement for the people to really take that further and getting some public speaking classes to sharpen my skills to deliver more messages and then just adding some more information knowledge to my repertoire so that way when I speak I have something important to say as opposed to saying a bunch of nothing like some of the mumble rappers we may have today.
Yes, which we've already discussed.
Exactly.
Mumble rap, is that what it's called? I feel, yeah, maybe that's basically it. Because when the guy was reviewing We Paid or whatever, he said, hold on a second, I'm actually going to have to look up the lyrics here because I can't tell what he's saying at all.
Yes.
Kind of funny. And when I went for my little jog today, on the way back, I saw a woman I know in a restaurant window. So I was talking to her, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to lose some weight." And she's like, "Oh, we've all got the COVID body." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess," but I feel like I haven't. I had the COVID body before COVID. Actually, that's the big. And then I was like, "Oh, maybe I can make that my stand-up act." 'Cause I won like first prize of the night in a contest a couple weeks ago for round one of a comedy club contest, and I got to do round two in a few days. And I'm like, "What am I going to write about this time?" And I'm like, maybe food, maybe losing weight, maybe trying to get sleep. I don't know. But thank you. You're doing the arm thing. What is that? Just a
Cheering you on for Go Josh, man. In
Yeah.
first place for round one, baby. That's right.
Well, I knew that's what you're doing. I was thinking, is that called something? No, I guess not. It's just called going like that with your arm. That did you ever see there was what's that guy's name? He's like Eddie Murphy's. He had a talk show years ago, and he would I don't know the doghouse. I think he would call the audience, and he'd go ooh or something. I never actually saw the show. I don't know why that just came into my head. Anyways, uh, anybody see Coming to America 2? Is that already out? I don't know.
Oh yeah, that came out. Wow, I think April, maybe sooner. Yeah, it was.
Oh,
Yeah, you. Well, yeah, definitely have to see the first one before the second one. Definitely to appreciate the second one.
yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've seen either. I haven't seen any movies in years. But what I like to do is sort of do a double bill. Like if you can see like a movie original and then see a sequel, or like a cool like watch the original Nosferatu and then watch the John Malkovich version about the making of the movie or something like that. That kind of stuff is fun to do. So maybe someday I'll watch Blade Runner and then the new Blade Runner. I don't know. Okay, so you got thin with your thin friends and then big again with your big friends. And then you were trying to do something with your voice. So Toastmasters, yeah, I've heard about that over the years. I've had friends that did it and I never did it. But then I started going to some meetings. There was some Facebook ad for like, it was like a talk from this guy who will teach you how to make money from public speaking. And it turns out he was a guest at a Toastmasters meeting that I joined. And then I'm like, oh, so I was joining a bunch of meetings over Zoom. And it turned there's a lot of clubs even within Ottawa. And so I was going to different clubs and then they were all like, okay, you're going to join, you're going to sign up. I'm like, oh, I can't commit to paying and having to come every week and actually having to do the proper work. So I never did it. So I feel bad, but you know, it's funny because I want to make friends and I feel like I should go to this Toastmasters meeting and there's something called Creative Mornings and I always want to go to those meetings and and I was taking stand-up comedy classes on Zoom in the winter and I'm like, I want to sign up for more. And it's like, because I'm just anything I can do to get out of my own head and improve my skills. But at the same time, I'm like, well, how much of this is procrastination? Like, I'm going to another Toastmasters meeting for 2 hours. Should I just be sitting down and writing my stuff? And so I'm torn. But all of it, even the class I took this winter, because I think it helped because I didn't get past the first round last year in that comedy contest. And so I've learned a little bit about, I guess, shortening my jokes and stuff like that. So that's good. So what happened? Did you go into voice acting? Did you try to do a radio show or a podcast back then, or what were you doing?
Yeah, so with that, was able to start a podcast about a good 4 years ago at the time of this recording. So about 2017, September, launched the Going North podcast, where I interview authors all over the globe to help listeners realize that success is tangible, especially if you're trying to write and publish a book of your own, because a lot of the folks I interview, they're regular folks who have 9 to 5 jobs doing as a side hustle, all the way to folks who've written New York Times and USA Today best-selling books that are doing it full time, or at least have their own full time business with writing books and just getting folks from diverse backgrounds, learning from them, and just giving them a platform to get their stories heard. And heck, it even helps me grow better as a listener and as a podcast host, and heck, even get my voice out there even more as well. Because another thing about podcasting is that one of the major things that folks recommend you do to grow your podcast audience is to guest on other people's podcasts. So it helped me to really just not only create that platform, create that space for folks to get their stories heard, and sometimes even have conversations that may go deeper than they expect or even deeper than what I expect. And then they leave feeling great about it. And then folks just catching on bit by bit and just enjoying the stories they hear from people that they don't normally hear about. Because like authors, like folks may think it's like, oh yeah, these best-selling authors, big names, but it's like big names are great, but a lot of them, especially for interviews, they may have told their stories millions of times as opposed to regular everyday folks who may not be as famous, but they still have that hunger, that drive for more and always getting better. And they still may have a fire that may be burning even hotter than those folks who are like really famous in the world. So that's really the benefit of the podcast. And that's what I've been doing with the voices, just advancing others to advance myself. Because in this world, like if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want.
I think that's what Tony Robbins says, isn't it? Just keep giving, and or maybe Gary Vee says that. Just give out information, help people. It'll come back to you eventually, like somehow. And build your tribe, all of that. Yeah, and that's. I mean, I've been talking. I was researching for years. How do I do a podcast? I took a podcast class for a whole day. I went to all these podcast conferences in Toronto. I met with a guy. I was like, how do you get something on iTunes? Like, I just couldn't figure it out. And then finally, about a year ago, I just sat down. I was like, okay, enough of this. Let me just before the pandemic, I was like, let me just sign up for hosting. And I just took the audio from a little video I made of me talking about the new Indiana Jones movie. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to make this a file that I can get on a podcast, whatever. Took a couple of days to figure it out. I'm like, okay, now at least I can do it. And then I've only like interviewed like 10 people over the past year because I was like, oh yeah, like I just wasn't doing it hard. But then, yeah, I got an email from this Podmatch website a couple of weeks ago or something. And I'm like, oh, it's actually people who want to talk. So I've already done 4 this week. I haven't even gotten around to posting them yet. I'm like, oh, I got to get this done. But it's interesting because, yeah, like a lot of people I was randomly talking to on Instagram or whatever, they're like, oh, why would you want to interview me, or what would I talk about? So yeah, a lot of people don't want to talk, but then there are people who do want to talk. So you might as well focus on those people. And again, I don't even know what my podcast is. Originally, I thought, okay, I want to be like Mark Maron or Joe Rogan. I'm just going to interview celebrities or like be a Perez Hilton. And then that's not, I mean, I could interview at red carpets, like if I got a media pass, but most celebrities can't just come on your show. Even if they want to, they'll be, oh, I got to talk to my agent and see, like, you know, they don't know what this is and what it would do with their reputation. And also, yeah, what would they even talk about? So, and then the more I've been doing it, like just, yeah, talking to people like you about what do you do? How did you do it? I'm starting to think, okay, what is the point? Like, is it funny? I mean, it does turn out to be funny a bit, but it's also kind of useful, I guess. So maybe in a way, it's a combination of like life coaching, advice on entrepreneurship or creativity, but also in a funny sense. And maybe that's my unique thing, because a lot of people interview kind of entrepreneur types, but it's not hilarious. And then there's funny shows like Conan O'Brien that are funny, but what's the point? And so, yeah, maybe this is a combination. I'm like the funny Tony Robbins, or I don't know. I don't know, but maybe it's just me, or maybe it doesn't matter. You know, it's like if I talk to somebody like you for half an hour, it's like I would have wanted to talk to you anyways. So if we record it and put it out there in the world, maybe somebody wants to listen. So that's okay, you know. I don't know. What do you think your goal with the whole thing is? Like, did you say you wrote a book and, you know, you can use the podcast to promote the book, or I don't know. Have you thought about, or is it just fun while it's happening? I don't know.
A combination of both, because my podcast Going North, it actually started off as a joke. Since Funny was talked about, a colleague greeted me one day. He's like, hey, how's it going? I'm pretty sure someone's asked you before, Josh. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Yeah.
And It's like, oh, be like, hey, doing good, doing well, or something like that, a classic answer. But for me, since I like puns, I decided, you know what? Let me just be literal too and just say I'm going north. And she just looked at me and was like, okay. And another colleague overheard it. She just busted out laughing and spit out her water because it's just so random. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's so dark corny. And that, funny enough, that one experience led to me doing that more often than other people. And I kept saying going north so much that it became the title of my first ever book, Going North Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, all about advancing and then taking the title of the book and then turning it into a podcast. And the goal with the podcast is to interview over 1,000 authors across the globe. And right now, last I checked, I'm about 455 authors in so far, with over 386 official episodes. So it's been going on for 4 straight years, just having fun with it, learning from other people, giving a platform for folks to getting their voices heard. And the thing is, like, when I originally started out with the show, and you may even come across this too in your journey with your podcast, is that I originally was just going to have self-published authors, especially in the nonfiction space, all about the whole professional setting, the professional development. But then, funny enough, I was doing a book. I was vending at a book event in Baltimore, and one lady, she was doing her day job, and she had a lunch break, and she was walking around taking pictures with the authors at every table because she herself was an author. And when I had the flyer on my table that I had a podcast, she was like, "Hey, so you accepted guests? Can I be on the show?" And she did this after she took my picture and gave me a 60-second Instagram story opportunity on her own platform to promote myself and the event. And I was like, well, sure, why not? And I was like, man, like I don't really do fiction authors, but hey, what the heck, I'll go ahead and do it. And then just kept bringing in authors to write both fiction. And I never thought I'd interview a romance novelist. And next thing I know, one of my co-authors last year, she has a romance novel that she pen named under a different name. And we're both in the same co-author project. So I'm like, man, I didn't want to have a romance novelist on my darn show, but you know what? She's good people. I have her on, and now it's like I probably got like two more romance novelists on my show because they still have something to share. So the thing is, like, if if someone's an author, they have a book of their own, and when they get the stories out there, let 100 flowers blossom because you never know who you'll meet because they may have interesting stories to share, and you may get something out of the conversation you may not have gotten before. So that's the goal with the show, is really just to interview 1,000 different authors across the globe to give them a platform to share the stories and learn from them, and to help continue other listeners, the audience, to get some stuff out of it too and realize that, hey, success is tangible.
Yeah, yeah. Did you say you're in the same project as her, or what did you say?
Yep, the same book project. We were in a book project last year called Crappy to Happy, Secret Stories of Transformational Joy.
Uh,
And her day job, she's a registered nurse, but she also she had two other books before that. One was a romance novel. I believe the book was called, I think it was like Walk in the Tuscan Sun or something. And then the other one was about IBS. And then she had a
Irritable
kid's,
bowel syndrome?
yep, because she
That
did,
that wasn't a
yep.
romance novel, or it
No,
was.
no. That wasn't the romance novel. That was a separate nonfiction book she wrote as herself. But the romance novel was under a pen name, and then she had a little kids book. I forgot what it was called, but there was like bees on the cover or something, a busy bee or something, and a kids book for kids under her real name. So yeah, it was a heck of an interesting experience. She's her name's Diane Vick. She's great people.
Cool. Yeah, no, she sounds great. I love people like that just do it. They're just like, I want to write a romance novel. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a kid's book. I'm going to do it. She reminds me of my mom. I've been living with my parents for the pandemic, after I sold my condo just before the pandemic. And yeah, like she's up every morning and she's done a painting or she's written a little kid's book or whatever. And I'm always like, by noon I've gone for a jog maybe, and I'm like just not getting things done. So people like that very much inspire me. So good for her. And yeah, romance is fun. And you can self-publish now on Amazon. You can just type it up and be like, here's my book. Like you don't need and that, James Altucher says he self-publishes on Amazon a lot now. And I know a woman who said she just would write like short stories about Christmas or something, and people love Christmas stories, so she'll write one, and I think she sold it for $1 or something, but she had 14,000 people buy it because it's like romance at
Mm.
Christmas or something. So you never know. Just Altucher just calls them experiments. Just do it. Write a one-page thing, throw it up on Amazon, see what happens. Start a podcast, see what happens. Like a lot of people, like years ago, I had an ad on Craigslist for like, I'll teach you how to do creative things, and even my friends would just message me. They were like, "What do I do?" And I'm like, "Well, just start. Like, okay, you want to be a writer? Here, try writing something. Write a little column about your life today or whatever, and then try submitting it to a community newspaper or a blog or anything, like just to start doing." And they're like, "Oh, that's work." I'm like, "Well, everybody wants to do it without actually doing it at all." But I know it's hard. Like I've always like, I'm going to be a comedian, but now I hate having to sit down and think about. I can write jokes, but I can't think about what to talk about. It's like, oh, do I talk about whatever? And it's like, it's just torture. So I can see why it's very much easier to just be like, nah, maybe I'll just watch Netflix today for a few hours or stuff. But then I'm not really getting ahead. I don't know what the point of any of it is. But that's very cool. And then, so in 2012, you were getting skinny, you were getting chubby again. And then, so did you stay, are you still working in IT? Or like, what are you doing the rest of your time?
Yeah, so funny enough, actually got an IT degree and didn't get an IT job, but I got a full-time job as a librarian, basically. And that's funny enough, that's still my day job too. So like when I'm not recording podcasts, writing books, and doing some leadership development for other companies, I'm basically in the library helping folks not just find books, but also find employment and also getting their resumes hooked up, and also with kids too. Like the other thing is like libraries, especially public libraries, they're community centers now more than anything else, because a lot of folks, especially during the pandemic last year, we had to pivot to do virtual programs over Zoom. We also had to expand our Wi-Fi to reach all the parking lots of all the 19 libraries in the Baltimore County area. So that way, even though folks couldn't be in the building during the lockdown, they could still drive to the parking lot, and if they have a laptop of their own, they can connect to our Wi-Fi and use that. And also, before the pandemic started, we had around a good 200 Google Chromebooks that folks can check out for 1 to 3 weeks. And since the pandemic started, we added another 300 to our original 200, because we got those 4 years ago, and some of them got lost and some of them got a little destroyed because some folks can be rough with the stuff.
Yep.
And even getting Wi-Fi hotspots too on top of that, thanks to the additional funding. So the libraries there are filled with gold, and not just the classic books by folks who may be dead or alive, but also especially public libraries, where it's helping folks in the community get some resource, whether it's movies to try to decompress and de-stress and try to get their mind off of things in the world, or for those who just need the Wi-Fi, need the technology to print their documents out, or just to use that to get themselves in a better position. Because the thing is, like a lot of folks, the pandemic last year helped a lot of folks realize that no one's truly invincible. Like heck, even the guy you mentioned earlier about how he's documenting everything he survived, and then out of nowhere catching that darn CV-19 crap nonsense. And
Right, exactly.
it's like, yeah, it helped us realize, like, hey, even though we may be tough, we still got to go through tough situations to really remind us of how tough we can be, and also remind us that even though we're still tough, we can still be vulnerable too, and we can always succumb to the evils of the world and the sicknesses of the world. We just have to heal and recover from that. So that's basically what I'm also doing now, in addition to everything else.
Wow, that's so great. I love libraries so much. Like as a kid, I used to, or in high school, I'd go there. I'd just bike over and I'd just grab a whole bunch of short story book, like anthologies for science fiction or horror books like The Omen, or magazines. I'd just sit there and read all day. I just loved it so much. And then after college, I was living in a house that was right across from a library, and I kept telling myself I should go over there and volunteer to read to the kids. I can be like Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire and like be a funny entertainer. I just never did it. I can't remember why. And then even if I'm in a library lately, like I was in a couple of years ago in a small town, friend dropped, I forget why. I think I went there to try to use the Wi-Fi because I realized, like I sold my condo a couple of years ago and I thought, oh, I'll just be a digital nomad and I can work from anywhere. But Wi-Fi doesn't work even in hotels, it's usually pretty slow. And if you're in a small town, it doesn't matter if you have a house, the Wi-Fi is very slow. And I realized, it is hard to get work done. I'm like, yeah, where would if I was living in a van, how could I do a podcast like this? All that stuff. So I didn't realize. then yeah, I mean, I'm still using my 2013 MacBook Pro that my work gave me when I left my job, and so I can see how very easily people could not have a computer or not have Wi-Fi, and so that's all useful. And as a community center too, yeah, somebody helping with a resume, or it's just also cozy, and it just makes me happy to see that people do like libraries and do read, because a lot of times I'll spend time with people who don't seem to care about reading, and it's like, it makes me sad. But it's nice to see when people do, and that libraries are still there. And my parents still use libraries. They're checking out books every day, and my mom gets audiobooks from the library and all this stuff that I didn't even realize they offer, because I haven't been to a library since, for 30 years or something. So it's all very inspiring. And it's interesting too, because I'm always like, would you even want to read a book from a long, like, you go back 20, 30 years and all these characters, it's like, well, why aren't you using the internet? Oh, they didn't have an internet, or they didn't have an iPhone. And it's like, do stories even still matter anymore? But I think they probably do. It like, even when I used to go to cottages as a kid, like we'd go to a relative's cottage, I loved like seeing a shelf of books in the corner, and it's like, oh, here's some stuff to read. It's like an old thriller, or I liked books like Coma. What was that? Michael Crichton would write sort of these thrillers like Jurassic Park, that kind of stuff I would love. And or John Grisham, like the Firm. I read that when I was walking around Europe when I was 20 and stuff. Anyways, I'm getting all nostalgic now, but that's a very cool job. I think I was researching it, like how could I become a librarian? Like because it would combine my love of books and reading and learning, but also just being around people. Because I wish now I had become a teacher or a professor. I see all these university professors tweeting even today about, oh, my students told me not to use periods in my text because that's too aggressive or negative, and I'm like, okay,
Oh,
but I'm
God,
like,
no,
I wish I was dealing with students and stuff. Like,
no.
I know I don't. I left. I tweeted back. I said, oh, so that what are you how are people supposed to write
Uh,
things? I wrote like one long sentence, the whole tweet long with no punctuation to make my point. I don't know why. Yeah, it's all ridiculous, but even my niece and nephew, they're 9 and 7, and my niece was listening to my stand-up act and telling me that's funny or that's not funny and stuff. So I love interacting with kids. I love interacting with anybody, like just of any age. It just makes me that, like, I hosted talk radio for a little bit, maybe like 15 years ago, and when people would call in and say they like the show or whatever, it just makes me cry. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm touching people, they like it. And even some random woman in the States who seems to be like a scientist, she messaged me on Instagram a few months ago saying, I love your stories, and it just gives me permission to go after my dreams. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because I'm always talking about I'm depressed and I don't know what the point of it. She's like, yeah, but it's nice to know that other people are struggling. Like it's comforting or something, and somehow like it's her permission. And I understand, because whenever I see somebody saying they're sad or depressed or whatever, at least I'm like, oh, okay. So I feel like I'm not missing out. Like everybody's kind of going through crap, so it kind of makes me feel like it's okay to be going through crap too, and just like it doesn't matter who you are. Like everybody's got their crap, I guess. Maybe that should be the name of my book. Everybody's got their crap.
There you go. You got it right there, because it's true, man.
Yeah. So you got your podcast and you're doing the librarian thing, and that's basically, and you sort of trained at Toastmasters, and then yeah. And so if I went to dombrightmon.com, what would I find?
Oh, yeah, you'll find the podcast itself, a long little bio about myself, and also a free gift if you subscribe to my monthly newsletter, Northbound Success, where I share 21 tips for those who want to start, grow, and manage a podcast of their own. Because, I mean, I'm still alive podcasting for 4 years now, interviewed
Yeah.
over 400 authors, and still get at least anywhere between 2 to 5 pitches a week. And so it's like, hey, I guess something's working. So might as well share what I know now, because that's the other thing too, in this era of imposter syndrome, where truth be told, to avoid imposter syndrome, and I got this from our buddy Mark Kumar, is the fact that the best way to avoid imposter syndrome is just not to pay attention to what other people are doing. Pay attention to what you yourself are doing, and comparing yourself to the person of the past. Are you better than what you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Heck, even last month, like where are you now compared to last month? Is the Josh from July. You should
Yeah.
probably call June and July the Josh special months, especially if that's one of your birthday months.
Yeah.
Actually, I think November's your birthday month, right?
Yeah. How'd you know that?
I actually did some research, looked at your stuff a bit. I usually
Wow.
try to do some kind of research before I go on someone else's platform to show respect to him, and just
Oh,
stuff like that. So yeah, man.
I feel like that's kind of a backward, like a little jab at me, but well, it's funny.
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, actually, I did. I was on a red carpet a couple of years ago interviewing this woman who she's on this show called Working Moms. She's like wrote. I don't know if she acts. She must act in it. Yeah, she's the star and writer and whatever. And but I was just interviewing a bunch of people. Somebody had asked me for this website to go interview. It was the Directors Guild Awards, and so I was like, "Oh, what are you here for? What are you nominated for?" And she's like, "Haven't you done your research?" I'm like, I'm just." She's like, "Wow, maybe you should research this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it was an awkward interview, but I still tried to be funny. uh, but then I was listening again. I keep referencing James Altucher just because I discovered him a few months ago on a webinar, and then it occurred to me to look him up again recently. And so I listened to his podcast. He's got tons of episodes where he just talks about random things, but he started a little mini series within the podcast called I Will Make You a Millionaire. And I'm like, well, I love coaching sessions like that, where it's like practical and he'll hear what somebody's working on and talk to them how to monetize it. So I've listened to all of those. And then I just searched his book, Skip the Line, and I started listening to every interview he's done with different podcasts just to hear. And a lot of it is the same stories, but he's varies it up different times. What was my point? Oh, and one of his things he was talking about how to interview people, like that's a skill. And he says Larry King his thing was he wouldn't research people at all. He would just go into it cold, and then that was like how he liked to do it, to get to know the person as he was talking. And I thought, okay, well, that'll be my thing. It worked for Larry King. That's legit. Because I feel like, I mean, sometimes I'll go in and read a bit and then know, but I don't know. I feel like the person themselves will know more. Well, it depends. I mean, they might not even know. Like, yeah, if you do your research and you know things to ask, and go, "Hey, I saw this on your album cover. Or I discovered this," and like, "Oh, I didn't know you know that." But actually, there's this series of videos on Instagram. It's like there's some interviewer called Narfog or Narf or something, Narwhal, who shocks celebrities when he's like, "Hey, didn't you do this as a kid? How did you know that?" And they're just blown away. Anyways, but yeah. So I mean, I guess I could vary it, but I feel like it's hard to know until you talk to somebody. Like everybody's gonna have a little bio, like I'm a life coach and I wrote a book, and I'm like, okay, it's and then I wonder if it'll just cloud up my mind too much, because then I'll forget what I read, or was this somebody else I read this about, and then I won't be in the moment. So I feel like, I don't know. And also it's all about, time efficiency, I guess. If you just learn about somebody as you're talking, then that's the time. You don't have to spend an hour before. But yeah, no, that's very respectful of you to do a little Googling, and I'll expect a present in the mail from you in November. It's a big birthday for me coming up. It'll be my 49th birthday.
Oh
and
wow.
and that's scary because I don't want to be 50. And I figured, I realized lately, like, okay, 3 months into my 49th year, or whatever you call it, 50th year, that's basically when I was conceived. So is that like I become 50 like 3 months after November? I don't know. Wait, that's not how it works. Yeah, no, I don't I don't know how it all works. But my friend Charles yesterday, he's like, I think you're overthinking the age thing. Like, it's just nobody cares. Just doesn't matter. Like, whatever. Just keep hustling. I don't know. And that's my great question. Is like, what would give me joy? Like, if I do if I focus on this podcast for 10 years and then I become a popular podcaster, is that going to give me joy? But I mean, does anything give anybody joy? I think that's, like you were saying, the pandemic kind of, I don't know. It made me realize, yeah, I mean, I can sit here and complain like, oh, I should have been a professor, or I wish I had, why didn't I do comedy every day for the past 30 years, and I ruined my potential and all this. Like, I was listening to Kathy Heller today, and she was talking about how, was she interviewing Kelly Clark? No, she was watching Kelly Clarkson's show, and Kelly Clarkson was saying that, when she was a kid, a choir leader was really tough on her and made her cry, but because the choir leader saw her potential. And then I started getting mad because I was listening to this on my jog. I'm like, I had an improv teacher tell me after my first round of improv classes, he took me aside and said, listen, I never tell anybody this, but you really have a gift for this. You should really pursue this. And I did. I mean, I took the Second City Conservatory, but I just never continued. It didn't occur to me that, hey, you can audition every year for the main stage, or why don't I just keep doing it it's so easy to get kind of lazy and look back and go, oh, how did I just waste the past 20 years? But at the same time, you can go, okay, well, there's this musical theater star, I guess maybe he's 42 or something, from Canada, but in LA, and he got COVID and he had his leg amputated and then died. I'm like, okay, well, so bad things happen. Or Chadwick Boseman, like early 40s, dies of cancer, even though he was top Hollywood star. So it's like everybody's got their crap, right? So maybe you just keep hustling. And I don't know. I try to look at people that are kind of like, my age or older. Like Gary Vee's a few years younger, but still a grown up, and he seems to have fun. Bill Maher is older and he's got no kids, but he seems to have fun with prostitutes a lot. But whatever. And Tony Robbins just turned 60, but he's got a new kid and he's very rich. So I'm hoping I could get very rich. I don't know. But I made $1 million a few years ago. I put 70 grand into a stock, it went up 4 times, then another stock went up 3 times, and I'm like, oh, now I got like over $1 million, but I got greedy. I'm like, no, they're gonna cure cancer. It'll keep going up, and it went down. I'm like, oh, if I just held on to that $1 million, I could have put that into something, make 10% a year, and live off that forever, and then keep growing. But the James Altucher thing, his thing is that he's made millions and lost them several times, like 8 times, gone broke and made millions. So it's like, there's no point in looking back and going, oh, I should just keep moving forward. I told my sister today, I'm like, I'm going to make $1 million today. And she's like, good for you. And then
she's like, I don't believe you.
Yeah. Well, she tries to be supportive. And then, I opened my email and I had a PayPal payment from a voice website that I did a voice gig for $749 US. And that's worth almost 1,000 Canadian. So, and he's doing the dog sound, the movement again. And, whoop, whoop. What is that guy's name? I'm cheating. Whatever. You know who I'm talking about? The buddy in America, coming to America, the other guy.
Oh, Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, the Arsenio Hall show. All right. Phew, thank you for that. Sidetrack. There was I met this girl years and years ago in LA. I think she found me on my video about eco stuff. Oh yeah, I made a love song to Lori David. Actually, this might even be for the rap song when I just made a little video proposing to her. She's like Larry David's ex-wife, an environmentalist, and this woman was making a website about recycling brides' dresses to help the environment. And she wrote to me, and I went up meeting up with her in LA. And then I made her mad or something. I think I tweeted to her about a date or something, or a dating site or something. She's like, "Well, I'm engaged to a guy. You shouldn't be talking about things like that." It's something to do with made her mad. Yeah, that's not the point of the story. Okay, just before that, we were in a hotel, and she took me to like a party on a roof. And in the elevator, we met some young kid who's like, "Hey, I'm Snoop Dogg's nephew or something, and you should come party with us or something." And that was it. I don't think we ever saw him again. And then I found her on Clubhouse recently or something. We were messaging, and I texted her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember we met Snoop Dogg's nephew or something." And I was like, yeah, whatever happened to that kid? So I Googled Snoop Dogg's nephew, and it turns out he apparently he'll mentor these young kids, and he calls them all his nephew. So they're all his nephews. So that's probably what it was. And now I kind of understand. I don't know. But what the point is? So it's like a mystery that was solved many years later. What's the point of that? Oh yeah, because Arsenio Hall, and we were talking about Snoop Dogg earlier. I don't know. What was I talking? Oh yeah. So anyway, then I got that email about the money, and I messaged my sister back, and I said, "Look, I made $1,000 million already. I only have to do this like 999 more times today, and I'm set with my millions." And she's like, "Good, you've manifesting all the money. Manifest all the money." But even she's doing stuff that I didn't realize. She's got. I sort of saw recently. I'm like, what is this thing she's tweeting about in her story? And turns out she was doing haiku poems to sort of. Just for therapy for herself, to make herself feel good, but people started liking them, so she made her own Instagram about her haiku, haikus by Naomi, and then she made her own. She started a community like for people to write haikus called Hello Ku, like HELLOKOO. So it's like, yeah, so it's kind of, and so she'll give a prompt every day, and everybody writes their comments with their poem, and then some of them she'll turn into graphics or something, and she's reading books on how to monetize that or how to make merchandise or whatever. And I'm like, oh, so I throw out advice every now and then. She's like, no, I got it under control. I'm like, okay. So, I got to focus on my own thing. I remember for you, even when I had a girlfriend in my early 20s, I kept telling her, you got to do stand up. You got to stand. She's like, I don't want to. And she eventually did it, and she was good and liked it, but I don't think she ever did it again. And then I told her, you got to take improv. She's like, I don't want to, but then she did, and she loved it, but she didn't pursue it. But what I should have been doing is just I think when people are pushing you to do something, it's probably something they want to do, but they're too lazy to do it. So they're like, oh, you should do stand-up. I'm like, why am I not doing stand-up? Why the hell am I trying to push other people? Wouldn't it be easier to push myself? So yeah, so I got to shut up about that and stop telling people to start a podcast and just do my own podcast kind of thing. And as this, if I get into this for 4 years and have 400 interviews, and am I going to feel fulfilled? Am I going to feel like, yes, this was all worth it?
Hey, that depends on you, my man. Heck,
Well,
you may get to it and you realize, hey, maybe I should. I think I'll just take a break now and just maybe go off to a mountain somewhere. Because I feel great doing it, but I'm not saying that's everybody's steez. So, I mean, like the thing is, like it kind of like we said earlier, sometimes you have to start and just see how it goes and see how far you can take it. Sometimes you just have to ask yourself, how far can I go with this as opposed to how long it'll take.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that one and let that sit in for a while later. But yeah, I interviewed a woman a few days ago, and her project is called Finish It, and she teaches people to finish projects. And then she's like, like a while ago, I was training for 10K, and then it was the day before the race, and then I decided, I don't want to do this. And she didn't do it. I'm like, didn't do it? What? But she's like, yeah, but sometimes finishing it can be just not doing it anymore. Get it off your plate and go do something else. So that can definitely, because I mean, I've got things on my to-do list that clutter up my mind all the time. And at some point you go, you know what? This has been on the to-do list for 20 years. Maybe you're not going to whatever it is, just like start fresh. So okay, yeah. And I mean, at the same time, we don't want everybody to do a podcast because we need audiences. We don't want all the competition. Like, at least doing a podcast is still kind of, I mean, there's at least a million or probably millions of podcasts, but it's not as many as like YouTube pages or something, because there's a bit more of a barrier to entry, because you gotta know how to record it, and then maybe pay for hosting if it's not a free hosting thing. And so it's just, I mean, it even took me 2 days to figure this out. And I'm sort of average intelligence. And so it's, so it's less competition. So it's still a good thing to do if you want to get discovered, I guess. But still, I mean, who's making money from this? Not a lot of people, but you do it for the love. I mean, again, I could have been watching Netflix for an hour, but I talked to you for an hour, and now people around the world can hear this if they want. So it's like, how is that a waste of time, even if it never makes any money, right? Like, it's still pleasurable. And, I probably never would have run into you otherwise, and I wouldn't have called, messaged you and said, hey, you want to sit and talk for an hour? It's like, no, I don't even want to talk. what are either of us getting out of this? Like, that's the funny thing. Like, even when I talk to my friends now, I'm like, we should record this, because otherwise what's the point? Like, I mean, of course I should, but I think that's why I broke up with my last girlfriend 10 years ago. Every time we would start having an interesting political discussion in the car or something, I'm like, oh my God, can I record this? She's like, no, why can't you just be with me and appreciate me? And I'm like, but it was because, and I read somebody recently say that when you're in love with someone, you want to share it with the world. And I'm like, maybe that's what it was. Like, I just loved talking to her, and I wanted to share all her wisdom and show off our great conversations, but she took it as like, oh, everything has to be about getting it out there and getting fame, and you don't want to just be with me. And now she's married with kids with someone else anyways, and I'm alone and childless. So, maybe that'll be my stand-up act. I think that's what I was thinking. I would be like, listen, I could stand up here for 7 minutes and be funny, but that's not going to, change your life or benefit you in any way. So what I'm going to do is just give you some advice. Probably most of you here are younger than me. And so I will tell you, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend right now, lock them down. It does not get any better. When you get to 48, I don't care what you look like now. You're going to look exactly like me, male or female. This is what it looks like. So, well, you're not laughing, so maybe I won't do this routine.
Yeah, because I'm like, so women have to expect baldness at 49? Is that what you're saying?
That's the joke. It's comedy. It's remind me not to invite you to my shows. Like, there'll be dead silence, and then I just be like, see you in the audience, put up your hand. So women are gonna go bald. It's like, it's up. Forget it, Dom, Mr. Literal. All right. Well, you're a librarian. It's librarian.
There you go.
You ever make any friends in the library? Do people come in? They're like, hey, you're Dom. Whatever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's never the people you want to be talking to.
Oh, it's sometimes like bartending. They tell you all your woes and their life stories, and it's like TMI Central. It's like, hey, my child's acting up in school. Okay, that's normal. Oh, hey, I'm gonna get my tubes tied today. Like, hey, what? Huh? What?
Huh,
No, I don't need to know that.
that's
See
the
you,
thing.
ma. See you, ma. I'm good, fam. So how about this book?
Yeah. Let me get your book on tubes tying. There you go.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, they love you, and if there are people like me who don't have somebody to talk to, like I was getting a Subway the other day. I made a little Instagram reel about this because I thought, oh, I'm gonna get the pizza melt. I've never got the pizza melt, but I'm gonna make it more like a pizza because I love pizza. So rather than getting lettuce on it, I would never put lettuce on a pizza. I'll get spinach because I've had spinach on a pizza, and I'll put the olives on, but I wouldn't put pickles on a pizza, so I won't put that on. And I just told the woman as she's making it, I'm like, I'm getting the ingredients that would only be on a pizza, and she's like, just didn't even just I it's possible she didn't hear me through the mask and the glass mirror thing and the protector thing, but she probably didn't care as well. And so that was my reel. And then people say, "Oh, don't be mean to her." And I'm like, "No, and I'm not being mean to her. I'm making fun of myself for caring about my pizza ingredients and for thinking anybody else would care." That was kind of the self-deprecating joke. But yeah, everywhere I go, like waitresses, I'm like, "Oh, I want to tell you my life story," and they got to smile and be nice and stuff. But it's tough for me. Like anybody I meet anywhere, I feel like I just become attached to them. Like I saw this woman sitting with a bunch of rowdy homeless guys who started. One guy started hitting his horn on a bike that was super loud and damaging my hearing, and then him and I were yelling at each other. And I stormed off. And the woman's like, "Come back! I'm sorry. Like I apologize." And now I feel bad. I've been heading back to that place every day, hoping I'll see that woman sitting there again, so I can just say it's okay. I'll be your friend. But now I realize even my friends I never see again. Like, all my friends from university that I thought, oh, we're going to have a lifetime of meeting up all the time and sharing these memories. I'm like, I haven't seen anybody at all. And my one friend, Loic, that I visited in Europe when I was 20 and haven't really seen him since, he was messaging on Facebook. He's like, get off your phone, get off the computer. You're ridiculous filming everything. You got to go walk through the mountains and find yourself. I'm like, yeah, but it's not going to I'm not going to become Tony Robbins that way. I don't know, man. You're right. Maybe I'll go hit the mountains. All right. Well, we're almost at the hour mark. That's a pretty good length for a podcast. How long are yours usually?
Yep, hour's good. Hour's good. I'm all good for an hour. Too sweet to be sour.
Oh, that's okay. See, that's a good rap song. But I mean, how you do your own podcast? Do you set a time for the interviews, or is it like what are the lengths that you normally would host your own show for?
It varies from guest to guest. The average across the board for the whole show is around a good 39 minutes because some episodes have gone to like a good 100 actually 80 minutes. Some have been 80 minutes and some have been 20. So
Yeah, and I've done the same. Like at the beginning when I was interviewing people, yeah, we'd sit there for an hour and a half on Skype. But I mean, at some point, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're talking to Elon Musk. It's you might as well cut it off. Like, who's going to listen to anything for an hour and a half? And then, like, I don't know how Joe Rogan does 3 hours. Like, I mean, you could spend your whole life listening to his podcast, but who's going to do? It's very strange. And some people like the Finish It woman, or maybe the musician yesterday. We just, I was like half an hour. That's a good time. And even at half an hour today, I was like, okay, we could end it, but we're still talking, so we'll see. And I'm like, okay, let's push it to an hour. But yeah, so maybe I guess it doesn't matter. It's like again, it's like just do it. Like if people don't want to listen for an hour, they don't have to. We're not. This isn't a TV thing where it's got to fit the time slot or whatever. So, but maybe I'm OCD and I'm like, oh, I got to hit the exact 60-minute mark. We're at 58:14 now. So so then I'm just rambling on. Okay, so if people want to find you, I guess what do you give them your social media, or you drive everybody to dombrightmon.com and then they go to your get on your newsletter and all that.
Yep. Best place, dombrightmon.com. Here to respond to most emails, indeed, unless you're trying to recruit me for some random MLM company. Nothing
Oh,
against them, just not a fan of them. But
no,
yeah,
no.
just check out dombrightmon.com. I'm on most social media websites like the Instagrams, the LinkedIn's, the Facebooks, the YouTubes. No dating sites. Funny enough, I had a guest yesterday. He's like, yeah, I'm on all the social media websites, but I'm not on the dating websites. I'm like, you know what? He's got a point because dating sites can kind of count as social media because you're being social with people.
They do, and that's the thing. Like, and that was I don't know because I mean, often when I would be on Tinder, I would like be like, "Hey, add me to Instagram. We can chat there, or Facebook, or because I post all my stuff about my life." And I just realized I think I'm saying a lot, and I hate when people do that on podcasts. I'm like, you got to learn. You probably learn to get rid of that in Toastmasters. Um, But I guess maybe somebody must have reported me for spam, or a lot of times they would just say, "Oh, you're just promoting yourself." I'm like, no, I'm not promoting. I don't need follow. Like, I'm just showing you who I am. Like, this is check me out. But they must have reported me because I've been banned from Tinder and OkCupid and Bumble. Because somebody was just asking me today on this inner circle app. She's like, "Oh, how do you feel about this app?" And I'm like, she's like, "You're on all the platforms." Like, well, I can't get on the other ones now. So yeah, a lot of people could use it for social media. But now I'm trying. I figure, okay, you know what? If I can just get my message out there with a podcast and on social media, maybe the right woman will find me that way rather than swiping. I had one other story about what you were just talking about. Oh yeah, the emails. Like, yeah, and if you even go on that Shaper app, it's all people with their MLM or Forex nonsense. But I made the mistake. I've been so lonely lately. Like, I've been replying to spam emails. Like, I get a lot for every time I post looking for web developer on Facebook. I didn't realize, but they're sort of scraping for that kind of info, and that's why everybody from India is messaging me with, "Oh, I will help you with SEO or your website." But then even like these, I am a Russian woman, and I think whatever. So I made the mistake of replying to one of these. Just be like, "Okay, add me to Facebook." Like, just on the 1 billionth chance that she actually is a beautiful woman just who came across my email address randomly. And then so she's been emailing me, she has been emailing me back, from some weird email address like, Ivan at legalissues.com, Russia, whatever. And it won't stop. And so every now and then I'll say, "Well, just add me to Facebook." "No, I cannot. I don't have enough data in this cafe, but please send me $300 and I can get my passport and come visit you." And so she just emails every single day now. "Hello, Josh, you have not replied." And so I feel I should not have. That's the problem. So I've started saving them in a folder called spam to make a video about, because I thought this would be hilarious to make a video about this. But now it's like I'm hitting my Gmail limit, and I'm like, I need to delete emails, and it's now a choice between, do I delete old emails from relatives I cared about, or do I save all these spam emails from Russia? I might have to start a new Gmail address, and like it's ruined my life responding to the spam. So you're right. Don't reply to any of those, and if you're spamming Dom, don't. Because but spam me because I need the attention, I guess, is my point.
That could be a T-shirt. Heck, maybe that could be a whole podcast. Actually, spam me because I need the attention.
Oh my God, I like it. Yeah. Well, I was reading yesterday. I was watching a YouTube video about this kid was showing how to make like graphics for a T-shirt. Like, you can go to this site where you just have different fonts, and it'll automatically make it a thing that you can then drag onto a T-shirt making site. And I'm like, oh, I could do that. So maybe that's my saying: spam me, I need the attention. And and it's by sparkthegenius.com, but also at Josh Rachlis, because I go by both names, and you can be whatever. All right. And yeah, well, I should take notes of that. I should get a transcript of this show later, and then I can go back and actually maybe just use some of that for my stand-up, because that's what they in stand-up class too. We would just do like a 1 minute riff on something, and just whatever we said about the topic, we could go back and look at where the little laughs were and stuff, and I could go back and even listen to where you laughed at my things. And I know you didn't like some of my, the bald ladies, but you like spam me. I need the attention. Actually, and that's the thing. And that's what I learned about my jokes too, because a lot of my stand-up last year, it's always been like these long stories. Like, I would talk for 3 minutes to get to the point that, I don't know, I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger's friend, and his wife becomes friends with comedians, but he won't, because guys don't do that, and I don't want to be your friend because you're a loser and you live in your parents' basement. But it took like 5 minutes to get to that point. But now I would shorten my jokes now to just be like, I reply to spam emails because I need the attention, and like, boom, there you go. It's a TikTok video. All right.
That's your whole series.
Exactly. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, then all right. Well, I'll start that, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, thank you, Dom. Did you say you're big on social media? Like, are you on Facebook and Instagram and that?
Yep, I'm on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the LinkedIn's. Yep,
Yeah.
I'm on those.
Okay. So people can look you up there, and I think what I'll start doing is telling people, just go to my website, because that way you get the Google hits, and then they can find it, rather than saying go directly, because then you're just giving Mark Zuckerberg money. Like, it's like, no, come to my website, get on my newsletter. You got to have the newsletter, because then you control it. And if you get, my God, like April 8th, because I remember this day because it was like the apocalypse for me. I at some point at night, I was looking at my phone, and then boom, Facebook gone. And it's like, you have 30 days to download all your stuff. You're gone forever. I lost my mind. I'm like, I've been on this thing. I don't know. Never found out. It came back 24 hours later. But those 24 hours, I was like rethinking everything in my life. Like, I spent 15 years posting every day on this thing. It's all gone, all my contacts. And it looks like once I looked it up, there was tons of people saying they lost their profile. So I don't know if there was something with their system that they were just shutting things down and then bringing it back. I was emailing Mark Zuckerberg on LinkedIn or Instagram. Like I was losing my mind. But it made me realize how much control these people have, right? Any day they could decide, oh, you spam someone, your profile's gone. Now all your contacts are gone. You never get in touch with anyone. So I feel like, yeah, for sure I should have an email list so I can just email people my stuff.
Yep.
And then also even some kind of record. Like if I was writing in a blog every day, and then at least I would own the blog. So if Facebook takes it away, it's like, well, I've got my blog, but that's extra work to have to go to a WordPress and type in every picture and stuff. So I don't know if I'll do that, but yeah, it's pretty scary to put all your eggs in the Instagram and Facebook basket because, wow, in 1 second you're gone. And then maybe someday they'll shut down. Like, I spent a lot of time on MySpace. It's not even there anymore. So, whatever. But yeah, it's all, we can just go back to the library and books are always there. All right. Well, thanks. And I'll get this uploaded and have a good Friday, my friend.
You too, Josh. Stay encouraged, man.
All right. Bye.